The wheels of Sophia Moretti's purple wheelchair made a soft rhythmic sound against the cracked sidewalk of South Michigan Avenue. It was the kind of November evening in Chicago where the cold didn't just touch your skin, it burrowed into your bones and made a home there. Elena Moretti walked beside her daughter, one hand on the wheelchair handle, the other clutching a canvas tote bag that held their entire world. A half-empty bottle of water, 3 granola bars, Sophia's medication, and a folder of medical bills that might as well have been written in blood. "Mama, my hands are cold," Sophia said, her 7-year-old voice cutting through the wind. Elena stopped immediately, kneeling down to rub her daughter's small hands between her own. Sophia's fingers were ice. Elena had dressed her in 2 sweaters and a coat, but the wheelchair didn't protect her from the wind that whipped up from the lake. "Better?" Elena asked, kissing her daughter's knuckles. "Better," Sophia said, smiling. She had her father's dark curls and Elena's green eyes, and a smile that could break your heart and put it back together in the same moment. They were 17 blocks from home because the bus route had changed, and Elena couldn't afford the taxi. 17 blocks with a wheelchair that had a squeaky front wheel and a daughter who never complained, even when Elena knew she was exhausted. "We're almost there, Angel," Elena lied. They had 9 more blocks to go. The street was getting darker as they moved away from the downtown lights and into the neighborhood where people locked their doors and didn't ask questions. Elena walked faster, her breath coming out in white puffs, her arms aching from pushing the wheelchair up the slight incline. She didn't see the 3 men until they stepped out of the alley. "Evening, ladies," the tallest one said. He had a scar running down his cheek and eyes that looked dead even in the dim street light. "That's a nice bag you got there." Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She instinctively moved in front of the wheelchair, putting her body between her daughter and the men. "We don't have anything," Elena said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Please, we're just trying to get home." "That bag looks like it's got something," another man said, stepping closer. He smelled like cigarettes and something sour. "Why don't you hand it over and we'll let you pass?" "Mama!" Sophia's voice was small, frightened. Elena's mind raced. The bag had nothing of value except Sophia's medication, the anti-spasm pills that cost $200 a bottle and kept her daughter's legs from seizing up in pain. Without them, Sophia would spend the night crying. "Please," Elena said, her voice breaking. "There's nothing valuable. Just medicine. Please." The man with the scar grabbed the tote bag, yanking it from Elena's shoulder so hard she stumbled. He ripped it open, dumping the contents onto the sidewalk. The granola bars scattered. The water bottle rolled into the gutter. The pill bottle hit the concrete, and the cap popped off, spilling orange tablets everywhere. "Pathetic," the man spat, kicking the folder of medical bills. Papers flew into the wind like dying birds. "No!" Elena dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather the pills before they rolled into the sewer grate. Her hands were shaking, so badly she could barely grasp them. That's when Sophia spoke. "Please don't hurt my mama." Her voice was quiet but clear. The men looked down at the little girl in the wheelchair. One of them laughed. "What's wrong with you, kid? Can't walk?" "I was in an accident," Sophia said, her chin trembling but her voice brave. "My daddy died and my legs don't work anymore. But it's okay because Mama says angels watch over us. Even when bad things happen, the angels are there." The men stared at her. For a moment, the street was silent except for the wind. Then the one with the scar laughed harder. "Angels? In this neighborhood? Kid, if there were angels here, they left a long time ago." He raised his boot over the scattered pills, ready to crush them into powder. "Stop!" The voice came from behind them. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the kind of authority that made grown men freeze. Elena looked up. A man stood at the corner where the street light met the darkness. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black wool coat that looked like it cost more than Elena's car. His face was half in shadow, but she could see sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes that looked like they could see straight through to your soul. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him, both built like mountains, both wearing expressions that suggested violence was not a possibility but a promise. The man with the scar straightened up, his hand moving toward his waistband. "This isn't your business," he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. The man in the black coat took 3 steps forward. The movement was graceful, predatory. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and colder than the November wind. "You're on my street. You're threatening a woman and a child on my street. That makes it my business." "Your street." The scarred man tried to laugh, but it came out strangled. "Who the hell are you?" One of the mountains stepped forward and whispered something in the scarred man's ear. Elena saw the exact moment the color drained from his face. "Mr. Dante," the scarred man stammered, taking a step back. "We didn't know we weren't." "Leave," the man said. "Not Dante," Elena's mind corrected. "Dante." She'd heard that name before, whispered in the diner where she worked, spoken with the kind of fear usually reserved for natural disasters. Dante Caruso. The North Side. The man who controlled everything from the ports to the politicians. The 3 men ran. Actually ran, disappearing into the alley like rats into a hole. Elena stayed on her knees, surrounded by scattered pills and ruined papers, her daughter behind her in the wheelchair. She didn't know if she should thank this man or fear him more than the ones who'd just fled. Dante Caruso walked toward them. In the streetlight, Elena could finally see his face clearly. He was younger than she expected, maybe 35, with dark hair and eyes the color of smoke. He was devastatingly handsome in the way that dangerous things often are. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. He stopped 3 feet away and looked down at the mess on the sidewalk. Then his eyes moved to the wheelchair. To Sophia. The little girl stared back at him with wide green eyes. She didn't look afraid. She looked curious. "Are you an angel?" Sophia asked. The question hung in the cold air like a bell that had been rung and couldn't be unrung. Dante Caruso, the man who controlled half of Chicago's underworld, who had built an empire on fear and violence, who had killed his first man at 19 and never looked back, stood completely still. His mouth opened, then closed. No sound came out. Elena watched in amazement as this terrifying man, this legend of brutality, looked at her daughter and seemed to forget how to speak. "Mama says angels watch over us," Sophia continued, her voice sweet and certain. "She says even when we can't see them, they're there keeping us safe. You scared away the bad men, so I think maybe you're my angel." Dante's jaw tightened. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or a memory so old it had fossilized. His hands, which had been relaxed at his sides, slowly curled into fists. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough, scraped raw. "I'm not an angel, little one." "That's okay," Sophia said, smiling. "Angels don't always look like angels. Sometimes they look like regular people. That's what makes them special. They hide in plain sight." Elena watched as this powerful, dangerous man crouched down. Slowly, carefully, as if approaching something sacred, he brought himself to Sophia's eye level. Up close, Elena could see that his eyes weren't just gray, they were the color of steel that had been through fire. There were scars on his knuckles. A thin white line ran along his jaw. This was a man who had seen violence and survived it. "What's your name?" Dante asked, and his voice had changed. It was softer now, gentler. "Sophia. Sophia Moretti. I'm 7 years old. What's your name?" "Dante." "That's a nice name," Sophia said. "It sounds strong." Dante's lips twitched, almost forming a smile. "Your mother is right. About the angels. Do you have angels watching over you?" Sophia asked. The question seemed to hit him like a physical blow. His eyes closed for just a moment, and Elena saw something crack in that carefully constructed armor. "I used to," Dante said quietly. "A long time ago." "What happened to them?" "Sophia." Elena finally found her voice, reaching out to touch her daughter's shoulder. "That's enough questions, baby." But Dante held up a hand. "It's all right." He looked at Sophia again. "I stopped believing in them. I thought they'd left me, so I stopped looking for them." "That's sad," Sophia said, and the simple honesty of it made Elena's throat tight. "But maybe they didn't leave. Maybe you just couldn't see them anymore because you were too sad. That happens sometimes. Mama was so sad after Daddy died that she couldn't see anything good for a while. But I reminded her. I told her to look for the angels again." Dante stared at the little girl in the wheelchair. Elena watched his throat work as he swallowed hard. "You're a wise little angel yourself," he said finally. One of the mountains cleared his throat. "Boss, we should move. This isn't a secure location." Dante stood up, but his eyes never left Sophia. Then he looked at Elena, really looked at her for the first time. She was still on her knees, clutching pills in her dirty hands, her cheap coat torn at the shoulder from where the man had grabbed her bag. "You're picking up medication," he said. It wasn't a question. Elena nodded, unable to form words. Dante reached into his coat and pulled out a phone. He dialed a number, never breaking eye contact with Elena. "Marco," he said into the phone. "I need a car at the corner of Michigan and 26th. Now." He paused. "And call Dr. Russo. Tell him I'm bringing a patient tonight. A child. I want a full medical evaluation and whatever prescriptions she needs. Tell him to clear his schedule." "Wait," Elena managed to say, finally finding her voice. "I can't. We don't have insurance." "I can't pay for. I didn't ask if you could pay," Dante said, his voice firm but not unkind. He ended the call and crouched down again, this time to help Elena gather the scattered pills. Their hands touched as they both reached for the same tablet. Elena jerked back as if burned, but Dante continued calmly collecting the medication, placing each pill carefully back into the bottle. "You don't have to help us," Elena whispered. "We'll be fine." Dante looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, Elena didn't see the monster everyone whispered about. She saw a man who looked tired and haunted and impossibly sad. "Your daughter thinks I'm an angel," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "I haven't been called anything close to good in 15 years. I'm not letting her be wrong about that. Not tonight." A sleek black car pulled up to the curb, so quiet Elena hadn't even heard it approach. The driver got out, one of the mountains, and opened the back door. "I'm taking you home," Dante said, standing up and offering Elena his hand. "And tomorrow, your daughter is going to see the best pediatric neurologist in Chicago. He's going to examine her, and he's going to tell us exactly what she needs." "Why?" Elena asked, the word breaking on a sob she didn't know she'd been holding back. "Why would you do this? You don't even know us." Dante helped her to her feet. Then he walked to Sophia's wheelchair, grasped the handles, and began pushing her toward the car with a gentleness that seemed impossible for hands that had done terrible things. "Because a little girl who's lost her father and the use of her legs still believes in angels," Dante said, his voice rough with emotion he was clearly trying to contain. "Because she looked at me, at what I am, and saw something worth saving. Because—" He stopped at the car, and when he looked down at Sophia, Elena saw something in his expression that made her heart break and hope at the same time. "Because maybe if I help her angel," Dante finished quietly, "mine might come back." He lifted Sophia from her wheelchair with practiced ease, as if he'd done it 1,000 times before, settling her gently in the back seat. Elena watched in stunned silence as he folded the wheelchair and placed it in the trunk with the same careful precision. "Get in," he said to Elena. "It's not safe here." Elena climbed into the car, her mind reeling. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Sophia was already bouncing excitedly in her seat, chattering about the fancy car and how soft everything was. Dante slid in beside them. The door closed. The driver pulled away from the curb, and Elena watched her old life disappear in the side mirror. "Where do you live?" Dante asked. Elena gave him the address. She saw his jaw tighten, saw the flash of something dark cross his face. He knew the neighborhood. He knew what kind of place it was. "That's not safe," he said flatly. "It's what I can afford," Elena replied, defensive. "I work 2 jobs. I do my best." "I'm not criticizing you," Dante said, and the gentleness in his voice surprised her. "I'm stating a fact. That building has 3 active gang territories within 2 blocks. The landlord pays protection money to the Sinaloa cartel. Your daughter is in a wheelchair. If there's a fire, you're on the 3rd floor. That's not safe." Elena felt tears burning her eyes. "I know," she whispered. "I know it's not safe, but I'm drowning in medical debt. Her father's life insurance didn't cover anything because the accident was ruled a suicide and I can't prove it wasn't. The hospital wants $10,000 or they're cutting off her physical therapy. I can't." Her voice broke. She looked down at her hands, at the broken nails and the calluses from scrubbing floors. A warm weight settled on her shoulder. She looked up to find Sophia's small hand patting her, offering comfort the way Elena had done for her so many times. "It's okay, Mama," Sophia said. "The angel found us. He's going to help." Dante's phone rang. He answered it with a curt, "Speak." Elena couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but she watched Dante's expression harden into something carved from ice. "How many?" he asked. A pause. "In my territory?" Another pause. "I want them found by morning. I want names, I want addresses, and I want the product seized and burned. This isn't a negotiation, Enzo. This is an order." He ended the call and looked at Elena. "Do you know what your daughter's medication costs at retail?" Elena nodded miserably. $208 a bottle. She needs 1 bottle a month. "It costs $9 to manufacture," Dante said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "The pharmaceutical company that makes it has increased the price by 400% in the last 3 years. They do this because they can. Because sick children and desperate parents have no choice but to pay." He looked out the window at the passing city lights. "I'm not a good man, Elena. I break laws. I hurt people. But I have rules. I don't sell drugs to kids. I don't protect the men who prey on the weak. And I don't stand by while children suffer because corporate greed is legal and my kind of crime is not." The car pulled up in front of Elena's building. It looked even more dismal next to the sleek black vehicle, like a wound on the face of a city. Dante got out first, scanning the street with the practiced eye of a man who expected threats from every shadow. Then he helped Elena out and retrieved Sophia's wheelchair from the trunk. "3rd floor, you said?" he asked. "Yes, but you don't have to." Dante lifted Sophia out of the car, wheelchair and all, carrying both with an ease that suggested this weight was nothing to him. "Lead the way," he said. Elena led them into the building, past the broken mailboxes and the graffiti, up the stairs that smelled like urine and mildew. She unlocked the door to their studio apartment and immediately wished she could hide it from him. The space was maybe 300 square feet. The paint was peeling. There was a hot plate where a stove should be. The bed she shared with Sophia was pushed against one wall, covered with a threadbare quilt Elena's mother had made before she died. But it was clean. God, it was clean. Elena scrubbed every surface until her hands bled because she could control that, even if she couldn't control anything else. Dante set Sophia gently in her wheelchair and looked around. His expression was unreadable. "You keep this place like a palace," he said quietly. "It's all we have," Elena replied, defensive again. "I meant it as a compliment." Dante walked to the window and looked out at the fire escape, at the rusted metal that definitely wouldn't hold in an emergency. His hands curled into fists again. "Pack a bag," he said suddenly. "What?" "Pack a bag. Clothes for you and Sophia. Medications. Anything you can't replace. You're not staying here tonight." "I can't just leave," Elena protested. "This is our home. I have work tomorrow and—" Dante turned to face her. "Did you see those men tonight? The ones who dumped your daughter's medication on the street like garbage?" Elena nodded, her throat tight. "Those men work for the Sinaloa cartel. They control this neighborhood, and now they've seen you. They've seen Sophia. They've seen me protect you." Dante's voice was hard, factual. "Which means by tomorrow morning, word will spread that you're under my protection. Some people will respect that. Others will see you as a way to get to me." "Oh, God," Elena whispered. "Pack the bag, Elena," Dante said again, softer this time. "I have a property in Lincoln Park. It's secure. It has 24-hour security and medical facilities on site. You and Sophia will stay there until I can ensure your safety." "I can't accept that," Elena said, even as her mind screamed that she should. "I don't even know you." "You could be dangerous," Dante supplied. "I am. I'm the most dangerous man in the city. But not to you. Not to her." He walked to where Sophia sat in her wheelchair, watching this exchange with wide, intelligent eyes. "Sophia," Dante said, crouching down again to her level. "Do you trust me?" Sophia studied his face with the serious consideration of someone much older. Then she reached out and placed her small hand on his cheek. "Yes," she said simply. "Angels don't lie." Dante closed his eyes, and Elena saw his jaw clench so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. When he opened his eyes again, they were wet. "Then I promise you," he said, his voice breaking on the words, "I will keep you and your mother safe. I promise you that no one will hurt you while I'm alive. I promise you that you will never go to bed hungry or cold or afraid. This is my word, Sophia, and I never break my word." "Okay," Sophia said, smiling. "Then we'll go with you." Dante stood and looked at Elena. "She's wiser than both of us." Elena felt the last of her resistance crumble. She was so tired, so desperately tired of fighting alone. "One night," she said. "Just one night, and then we figure something else out." Dante nodded, even though they both knew she was lying to herself. Elena packed their meager belongings into a duffel bag, 2 changes of clothes each, Sophia's stuffed rabbit, the photograph of Sophia's father that sat on the nightstand. It took less than 10 minutes to gather their entire life. As they left the apartment, Sophia looked up at Dante from her wheelchair. "Mr. Dante," she asked. "Yes, little one?" "Mama says angels watch over us even when we can't see them. But I can see you. Does that mean you're a special kind of angel?" Dante stopped in the hallway. Elena watched him struggle with something internal, some war being waged behind those gray eyes. Finally, he crouched down one more time and took Sophia's hand. "I think," he said carefully, "that you're the angel, Sophia. And maybe, just maybe, you were sent to remind me what it feels like to be human." He stood up and looked at Elena. "Let's go home." And as they walked out into the cold Chicago night, Elena realized that for the first time in 2 years, that word, home, didn't fill her with dread. It filled her with hope. The Lincoln Park penthouse was not a home. It was a fortress disguised as luxury. Elena stood in the marble foyer, clutching the duffel bag that contained everything she and Sophia owned, and felt like an imposter in a museum. The ceiling soared 20 feet above them, crowned with a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than she'd earn in her lifetime. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Chicago skyline glittered like a promise of a world she'd never been invited to join. "This is where you live." Sophia's voice echoed in the vast space, filled with wonder rather than intimidation. Dante set down her wheelchair and lifted Sophia into it with that same careful gentleness Elena had witnessed on the street. "One of the places," he said. "I prefer it to the others. It's quiet." A woman appeared from a side hallway, late 50s, with steel-gray hair pulled into a neat bun and eyes that assessed Elena with the efficiency of a computer scan. She wore a simple black dress and sensible shoes, and moved with the confidence of someone who belonged here. "Mr. Caruso," she said, her voice warm but professional. "I've prepared the east wing as you requested. 2 bedrooms, connecting bathroom. I've also stocked the kitchen with groceries appropriate for a child." "Thank you, Teresa," Dante said. "This is Elena Moretti and her daughter, Sophia. They'll be staying with us. Please make sure they have everything they need." Teresa's expression didn't change, but something softened in her eyes when she looked at Sophia. "Of course. Welcome to your new home, Miss Sophia." "Are you an angel too?" Sophia asked. Teresa blinked, clearly thrown. She looked at Dante, who had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. "It's a long story," he said. "I see." Teresa smiled at Sophia. "I'm not an angel, sweetheart. I'm the housekeeper. But I do make chocolate chip pancakes that some people say are heavenly." "I like chocolate chips," Sophia said seriously. "Then we'll get along perfectly." Teresa looked at Elena. "Mrs. Moretti, if you'll follow me, I'll show you to your rooms. I'm sure you'd like to get settled." Elena nodded, unable to form words. The unreality of the situation was pressing down on her like a physical weight. 12 hours ago, she'd been scrubbing floors in an office building. Now she was standing in a penthouse that belonged on the cover of Architectural Digest, being welcomed by a housekeeper who looked like she'd stepped out of a British period drama. "Elena!" She turned. Dante was watching her with those penetrating gray eyes. "Dr. Russo will be here in an hour," he said. "He's going to examine Sophia. I want you to tell him everything. Every symptom, every pain, every limitation. Don't hide anything because you're worried about the cost. There is no cost. Do you understand?" "I don't understand any of this," Elena whispered. Dante crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. He stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably had a name she couldn't pronounce. "I know this is overwhelming," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I know you don't trust me. You'd be a fool to trust me. But your daughter does, and I will not betray that trust. So for tonight, just let yourself be taken care of. Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest." "Why are you doing this?" Elena asked, the question that had been burning in her chest finally breaking free. "People like you don't help people like me. There has to be a reason. There has to be something you want." Dante's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "I had a sister." The past tense hit like a gunshot. "Had?" Elena whispered. "Her name was Lucia. She was 8 years old when she got sick. Leukemia." Dante's voice was flat, emotionless, but his hands were clenched at his sides. "My family had money then, not like this, but enough. My father ran a legitimate construction business. We had insurance. We should have been fine." "What happened?" "The insurance company denied the experimental treatment the doctors said might save her. They said it was too risky, too expensive, not proven enough. My father fought them. He spent everything we had on lawyers and appeals. He remortgaged our house. He sold his business. And while he was fighting, while he was drowning in paperwork and bureaucracy, Lucia died in a hospital bed holding a stuffed rabbit." Elena's breath caught. She looked toward the hallway where Teresa had taken Sophia, where her daughter's voice drifted back asking about the fancy bathroom. "I was 16, Dante continued. "I watched my father destroy himself trying to save her. I watched my mother stop eating, stop sleeping, stop living. And I learned that money isn't just money. It's power. It's the difference between life and death. And the people who have it use it as a weapon against people who don't." He finally looked at her, and the rawness in his expression made her chest ache. "So when your daughter, a little girl in a wheelchair who still believes in angels despite everything this world has done to her, looked at me and saw something good, I couldn't walk away. I won't be the man who lets another Lucia die because the system is designed to kill people slowly and call it business." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry about your sister." "Don't be sorry. Just let me help yours." Before Elena could respond, Teresa returned, smiling gently. "Mrs. Moretti, the rooms are ready whenever you are." Elena followed Teresa down a hallway lined with original artwork, pieces she recognized from the art history class she'd taken in college, back when she dreamed of being a teacher instead of a floor scrubber. They passed a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a gym that looked like it belonged in a professional training facility, and finally reached a set of double doors. Teresa opened them, and Elena's breath caught. The suite was bigger than her entire studio apartment. The walls were painted a soft cream color, and one entire side was glass, overlooking the city. There were 2 bedrooms connected by a bathroom that featured a massive tub and a shower with what looked like a dozen different settings. But what made Elena's throat close was the smaller bedroom. Someone, Teresa, she assumed, had transformed it into a child's paradise. The walls were painted with murals of clouds and stars. The bed was piled with stuffed animals. But most importantly, there was a ramp leading to the bed, smooth and wide enough for Sophia's wheelchair. The bathroom had grab bars installed at child height. Even the sink had been lowered. "Mr. Caruso had the modifications done 3 years ago," Teresa said quietly, noticing Elena's stare. "After his nephew visited. The boy has cerebral palsy. Mr. Caruso wanted him to be comfortable here." "He has a nephew?" "Had," Teresa corrected gently. "His brother moved to Italy 2 years ago. The boy's condition improved with treatment there. They don't visit anymore." So Dante had done this before, had created a safe space for a disabled child, only to lose access to that child. The grief must have been unbearable. "Mama, look!" Sophia wheeled herself into the room, her face lit with joy. "There's a ramp, and the bed has stars on it. And look," she wheeled to the window. "I can see the whole city." Elena walked to her daughter, kneeling down beside the wheelchair. "Do you like it, Angel?" "It's like a castle," Sophia breathed. "Are we really staying here?" "For tonight," Elena said, though the certainty in her voice was wavering. "Just for tonight." Sophia looked up at her with those 2 wise eyes. "You always say just for tonight, Mama. But maybe this time It could be longer. Maybe this time, we found the right place. Before Elena could respond, there was a knock on the suite door. Dr. Russo has arrived, Teresa announced. The next hour was a blur of medical examination. Dr. Russo was a small man in his 60s with kind eyes and gentle hands. He examined Sophia thoroughly, asking questions about her accident, her current mobility, her pain levels. He tested her reflexes, her muscle tone, her range of motion. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, answering his questions, watching her daughter be handled with more care than any hospital emergency room had ever shown. Dante stood in the doorway, silent but present, his arms crossed over his chest. Finally, Dr. Russo sat back. "Miss Sophia," he said, "you are a very strong young lady. Do you know that?" Sophia nodded. "Mama says I'm brave." "Your mama is right. Now, I'm going to talk to your mama and Mr. Dante for a few minutes. Would that be all right?" "Okay." Sophia wheeled herself to the window, content to look at the city lights. Dr. Russo gestured for Elena and Dante to follow him into the other room. Once the door was partially closed, he pulled out a tablet and began scrolling through notes. "The damage to her spinal cord is significant," he said without preamble. "The accident caused compression at the L1, L2 vertebrae. She has partial sensation in her legs, which is promising, but no motor control." "Can she walk again?" Elena asked, the question she'd been too afraid to voice for 2 years, finally breaking free. Dr. Russo looked at her with compassion. "With the right treatment, there's a possibility. Not a guarantee, but a possibility. She would need intensive physical therapy, at least 5 sessions a week. She would need a consultation with Dr. Hendricks at Northwestern. He's a specialist in pediatric spinal injuries. And depending on what he finds, she might be a candidate for a surgical procedure that could relieve some of the compression." "How much?" Elena whispered. "For everything. Including surgery if she needs it." Dr. Russo glanced at his tablet. "Approximately $350,000. Insurance might cover some of it, but given your current situation..." The number hit Elena like a physical blow. $350,000. It might as well have been $3 billion. She'll have everything she needs. Elena turned to stare at Dante. He was looking at Dr. Russo with an expression of absolute certainty. "Set up the appointments," Dante continued. "Get her on Dr. Hendricks's schedule immediately. I don't care if you have to buy out his entire week. And I want a physical therapist here, starting tomorrow. Someone who specializes in pediatric cases." "Mr. Caruso," Elena said, her voice shaking. "I can't let you, that's too much." "It's nothing," Dante said flatly. "It's a number on a bank statement. It means nothing to me and everything to her." He looked at Sophia, still entranced by the window. "She believes in angels, Elena. Let me prove to her that sometimes they're real." Dr. Russo closed his tablet. "I'll make the calls tonight. We'll start treatment this week." He paused, looking between them. "You're doing a good thing, Dante." "Don't canonize me yet, Antonio," Dante said dryly. "I'm still the same man I was yesterday." After Dr. Russo left, Elena helped Sophia get ready for bed. The little girl was exhausted, the adrenaline of the day finally wearing off. Elena tucked her into the star-covered bed, pulling the soft comforter up to her chin. "Mama," Sophia said sleepily, "is Mr. Dante really going to help me walk again?" Elena's throat closed. She couldn't make that promise. She couldn't give her daughter hope that might be crushed. "He's going to try, Angel," she said instead. "He's going to try very hard." "Good." Sophia's eyes were already closing. "I knew he was an angel. I knew it the moment I saw him." Elena waited until Sophia's breathing deepened into sleep. Then she stood, turned off the light, and walked out into the living area of the suite. She made it 3 steps before her legs gave out. She sank onto the plush couch, buried her face in her hands, and finally let herself break. The tears came in great, heaving sobs that she muffled against her palms. 2 years of fear and desperation and exhaustion poured out of her in a flood she couldn't control. She cried for every skipped meal, for every bill she couldn't pay, for every night she'd lain awake wondering if tomorrow would be the day they ended up on the street, for every time Sophia had asked when her legs would work again and Elena had to say, "I don't know." She didn't hear the door open. didn't hear the footsteps. She only realized she wasn't alone when a handkerchief appeared in her field of vision, real cloth, monogrammed with the initials DC. She looked up. Dante stood there, his expression carefully neutral. "I'm sorry," Elena gasped, trying to wipe her face. "I'm sorry, don't apologize for being human," Dante said quietly. He sat down on the couch, keeping a respectful distance between them. "You've been strong for too long. Eventually, the armor cracks." Elena wiped her eyes with the handkerchief. It smelled like his cologne. "I don't know how to accept this," she admitted. "All of it. The apartment, the doctor, the money. I don't know what you expect in return." "I expect nothing. Nobody does something for nothing." Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with something Elena couldn't quite identify. "Do you know what I do, Elena? My real business? I've heard rumors. I control the shipping at the port of Chicago. Legitimate cargo, mostly, but also things that aren't legitimate. I own construction companies that are real businesses, but they also launder money for people who need that service. I broker deals between people who can't go to the police when those deals go bad. I enforce contracts that aren't written on paper. I am, by every legal and moral definition, a criminal." He looked at her, and there was no apology in his eyes. "I've killed people," he continued. "Not many, and never anyone who didn't deserve it by the rules of the world I live in, but I've done it. I've broken laws. I've hurt people. I've built an empire on fear and violence, and the willingness to do what other men won't." "Why are you telling me this?" Elena whispered. "Because I need you to understand that when your daughter looked at me and called me an angel, she was wrong. I am not good. I will never be good. The things I've done can't be washed away by charity or kindness or helping one little girl walk again." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. "But for the first time in 15 years, when she said those words, 'Angels watch over us,' something in me that I thought had died woke up. I felt shame. I felt hope. I felt like maybe, just maybe, if I could save her, I could save some small piece of myself." He looked at Elena, and she saw the truth in his eyes, the desperation, the need, the hunger for redemption that he didn't believe he deserved. "So I don't expect anything from you," Dante said, "except maybe the chance to try to be the man your daughter thinks I am. Even if it's a lie, even if I'm only pretending. For her, I'll pretend to be good." Elena stared at this man, this criminal, this killer, this self-proclaimed monster, and saw something that took her breath away. She saw someone who was just as broken as she was. "You're not pretending," she said softly. Dante's laugh was bitter. "You don't know me." "No, but I know my daughter. And Sophia has always been able to see people's souls. She looked at you and saw an angel. Maybe you should start believing her." If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Something flickered across Dante's face. Surprise, maybe, or the faint stirring of hope. Before either of them could speak, Elena's stomach growled loudly. She pressed a hand to it, embarrassed. "When did you last eat?" Dante asked. "Yesterday. Lunch." She didn't mention that lunch had been half a sandwich because Sophia wanted the other half. Dante stood abruptly. "Come with me. I should stay with Sophia. Teresa is monitoring the room. If she wakes up, you'll know immediately." He held out his hand. "Come." Elena took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. He led her through the penthouse to a kitchen that looked like something from a cooking show. Stainless steel appliances, marble countertops, and a refrigerator big enough to hold a week's worth of groceries for a family of 10. Dante opened the fridge and began pulling out ingredients with the efficiency of someone who knew his way around a kitchen. "You cook?" Elena asked, surprised. "My mother taught me. She said a man who can't feed himself is a man who can't survive." He set a cutting board on the counter and began slicing vegetables with quick, precise movements. "Sit." Elena sat on one of the bar stools, watching him work. There was something surreal about watching a Mafia boss dice tomatoes and mince garlic with the skill of a professional chef. "My mother used to say the same thing," Elena said. "She taught me to cook when I was 8. She said food was love made visible." Your mother was wise. She died when I was 22. Cancer. By the time they caught it, it had spread everywhere. I'm sorry. Me too. Elena watched him add olive oil to a pan. My father died 6 months later. Heart attack. The doctor said it was medical, but I think it was grief. He couldn't live without her. Dante glanced at her. And Sophia's father? Elena's hands tightened around the edge of the counter. Marcus was a good man. A teacher. He loved Sophia more than anything. We were driving home from her 5th birthday party when a drunk driver ran a red light and hit us on Sophia's side of the car. Her voice cracked. Marcus died on impact. Sophia survived, but her spine was crushed. I walked away with bruises. Just bruises. I was in the front seat, and I barely got hurt, while she couldn't finish. Dante set down the knife and came around the counter. He didn't touch her, but his presence was solid, grounding. You survived because you were supposed to, he said quietly. You survived because Sophia needed you. There's no logic to tragedy, Elena. It just is. Sometimes I wish I'd been hurt instead, she whispered. Sometimes I wish it was me in the wheelchair. At least then I deserve the guilt. You don't get to trade places with her, Dante said. You get to be strong enough for both of you. That's harder. He went back to the stove, and soon the kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and tomatoes and fresh basil. He plated pasta with a red sauce that looked restaurant quality and set it in front of her. Eat, he commanded. Elena took a bite and closed her eyes. It was delicious, perfectly cooked, seasoned with a care that suggested this wasn't just fuel but an act of love. She ate like she was starving, because she was. When she finally set down her fork, the plate was empty, and she felt almost human again. Thank you, she said. Dante leaned against the counter, watching her. You're welcome. Why did you learn to cook? She asked. I mean, you have Teresa. You have staff. You could have personal chefs if you wanted. Because cooking is control, Dante said. You take raw ingredients, you apply heat and technique, and you create something. In my world, there's very little I can control. But in this kitchen, I'm the master. It's peaceful. Elena understood. I used to paint. Before Sophia, before everything. I'd lose myself in it. The colors, the textures. It was the only time my mind was quiet. When did you stop? When I realized paint supplies cost money I didn't have. When every minute not working was money I wasn't earning. She looked down at her hands, calloused, scarred from years of cleaning chemicals. I don't even know if I remember how anymore. Dante walked to a door Elena hadn't noticed and opened it. Inside was a room lined with shelves, and on those shelves were art supplies, canvases, paints, brushes, easels. Everything an artist could need. My mother painted, he said. After Lucia died, after my father drank himself to death, my mother locked herself in her studio and painted for 3 days straight. She didn't eat, didn't sleep. She just painted until she finally processed enough of the grief to keep living. He looked at Elena. This was her studio. I've kept it exactly as she left it. No one's used it in 10 years. He paused. You could. Elena stared at the room, at the possibility it represented. I couldn't. It's your mother's space. My mother is dead. The paint is drying up. The canvases are collecting dust. Dante's voice was firm. She would want them used. She would want someone to create something beautiful instead of letting her tools rot. Use them, Elena. Paint again. I don't know what I'd paint. Then find out. They stood there in silence, looking at the ghost of a dead woman's dreams. Finally, Elena said, I should check on Sophia. Dante nodded. The suite is yours. Both rooms, the bathroom, everything. Teresa has stocked the fridge with food for breakfast. If you need anything at all, call me. He handed her a phone. It was new, expensive, with only one number programmed in. This is a direct line to me, he said. Day or night. If something scares you, if Sophia needs something, if you just want to talk, call. Elena took the phone. Their fingers brushed, and she felt electricity shoot up her arm. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, for saving us, for seeing us, for not looking away. Dante's jaw tightened. I'm the one who should be thanking you. You let a monster into your life because your daughter saw an angel. That takes either tremendous faith or tremendous desperation. Maybe both, Elena said. But I think Sophia's right. I think you're more angel than monster. We'll see, Dante said. Give it time. Monsters are very good at hiding their teeth. But as Elena walked back to the suite, as she checked on her sleeping daughter and crawled into the most comfortable bed she'd ever touched, she thought about the man who'd cooked her dinner and offered her his dead mother's art studio. She thought about the way he'd looked when Sophia called him an angel, like a man seeing sunlight for the first time after years in the dark. And she thought that maybe, just maybe, they were all a little bit broken. And maybe, together, they could be whole. The morning light that filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Lincoln Park penthouse was different from the gray dawn Elena was used to. It was golden, clean, untouched by the shadows of alleys and the grime of desperation. She woke slowly, disoriented, her body sinking into sheets that felt like clouds instead of the scratchy polyester she'd grown accustomed to. For 3 perfect seconds, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. The attack, Dante Caruso, the penthouse, the promise of medical treatment that might give Sophia her legs back. Elena sat up, her heart racing, and immediately looked toward the connecting door to Sophia's room. It was open. The bed was empty. Panic seized her chest like a fist. She threw off the covers and ran, barefoot, her mind already spiraling to worst-case scenarios. Sophia falling, Sophia trying to navigate the penthouse alone, Sophia. She heard the laughter before she saw them. Elena skidded to a stop in the doorway of the massive kitchen. Sophia sat at the counter in her wheelchair, flour dusting her nose, while Teresa stood beside her showing her how to crack an egg. But it wasn't Teresa who had stolen Elena's breath. It was Dante. He stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with the easy confidence of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. He traded his designer suit for dark jeans and a black Henley that hugged his shoulders. His hair was slightly mussed, and he looked younger somehow, less like a crime lord and more like a man playing house. "Mama!" Sophia spotted her and beamed. "Look! Mr. Dante is teaching me to make pancakes, and Teresa says I'm a natural." "You're up early," Dante said, glancing over his shoulder. His gray eyes were softer in the morning light, less steel and more smoke. "Coffee's fresh." Elena stood frozen, trying to process the domestic scene in front of her. This wasn't how mob bosses were supposed to behave. This wasn't. "You're staring," Dante said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Sorry, I just—" Elena walked to the coffee pot, desperate for something to do with her hands. "I didn't expect to wake up to this." "Mr. Dante makes the best pancakes in the whole world," Sophia declared. "He puts chocolate chips in them and blueberries. At the same time." "Revolutionary," Elena murmured, pouring coffee into a mug that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Teresa smiled. "Mr. Caruso insisted on breakfast being special for Miss Sophia's first morning here." "I wanted her to feel welcome," Dante said, plating a pancake that was perfectly golden and studded with fruit and chocolate. He set it in front of Sophia with a flourish that made the little girl giggle. Elena watched her daughter cut into the pancake with the special adaptive fork Teresa had somehow produced, her face lit with joy that had been absent for so long. When had Sophia last laughed like this? When had she last been just a child, unburdened by pain and limitation? "Eat, Mama," Sophia commanded through a mouthful of pancake. Mr. Dante made enough for everyone. Elena sat down at the counter, accepting the plate Dante slid in front of her. She took a bite, and despite herself, had to suppress a moan. It was perfect, fluffy, sweet, the chocolate melting against the tartness of the blueberries. "Good?" Dante asked, and there was something vulnerable in the question, as if her answer actually mattered. "It's perfect," Elena said honestly. They ate breakfast together, this strange makeshift family, a crime lord, a housekeeper, a desperate mother, and a little girl who believed in angels. The conversation flowed easily, Sophia chattering about the dreams she'd had in her castle bed, while Teresa and Dante listened with genuine interest. Elena found herself watching Dante when he wasn't looking. The way he listened to Sophia with complete focus, as if she were the most important person in the world. The way he cut his own pancake into precise squares, a detail-oriented precision that probably served him well in his other life. The way his eyes occasionally drifted to the window, scanning, always aware of threats even in this moment of peace. After breakfast, Teresa cleared the plates while Dante checked his phone. Elena saw his expression harden, the warmth draining from his face like water through a sieve. "I have to go out," he said, his voice shifting back to the cold authority she'd heard last night. "Teresa will stay with you. Dr. Hendricks' office called. They've moved up Sophia's appointment to this afternoon. A car will take you at 2 p.m. You're not coming?" Sophia asked, and Elena heard the disappointment in her daughter's voice. Dante's jaw tightened. He walked to Sophia, crouching down beside her wheelchair. "I have to take care of some business, little one. But I promise I'll be here when you get back. You can tell me everything the doctor says, okay?" "Okay," Sophia said, but her smile had dimmed. Dante stood, and his eyes met Elena's. There was something dark there, something that made her shiver. "Don't leave the building," he said quietly. "Not until I get back. The car will take you directly to the hospital and back. Marco will be with you. He's my head of security. He looks scary, but he's gentle with children." "Is something wrong?" Elena asked. Dante's smile was sharp, dangerous. "Nothing I can't handle. But the men from last night, the ones who tried to rob you, they work for people who need to understand that you're under my protection. I'm going to have a conversation with their employer to make that very clear." Elena's stomach dropped. "You're going to hurt them." "I'm going to make sure they never hurt anyone again," Dante corrected. "There's a difference." He grabbed his suit jacket from the back of a chair, transforming from the man who made pancakes back into the predator who controlled a city. At the door, he paused. "Elena," he said without turning around. "Your daughter called me an angel. I'm going to do terrible things today to make sure she never has to see the kind of men who would hurt her. Does that make me good or evil?" He didn't wait for an answer. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. The appointment with Dr. Hendricks was everything Elena had hoped for and everything she'd feared. The doctor was in his 60s, with kind eyes and hands that moved over Sophia's spine with the reverence of a man touching something sacred. His office at Northwestern Memorial was state-of-the-art, filled with equipment Elena had only seen in medical dramas. Marco, a man who looked like he could bench-press a car, stood outside the examination room, his presence a silent promise that nothing would harm them here. "The compression is significant," Dr. Hendricks said, showing Elena an MRI scan that looked like abstract art. "But there's no complete severing of the spinal cord. That's good news. It means the signals from her brain to her legs are being blocked, not destroyed." "Can you fix it?" Elena asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Hendricks looked at Sophia, who was lying on the examination table, brave and quiet despite the unfamiliar surroundings. "There's a procedure," he said carefully. "It's relatively new, spinal decompression surgery, combined with aggressive physical therapy and potentially stem cell treatment. The success rate in children her age is about 60%. 60%, Elena repeated. "What happens to the other 40? "No improvement. The surgery carries risks, infection, further damage, paralysis becoming permanent. But without intervention, she'll never walk again. With intervention, there's a chance." Elena looked at her daughter. Sophia was watching her with those two wise eyes, waiting for her mother to decide her future. "What do you think, Angel?" Elena asked, because Sophia deserved a voice in this. "Will it hurt?" Sophia asked Dr. Hendricks directly. "Yes," he said, because he was honest enough not to lie to her. "For a while. But then if it works, you'll be able to walk again. You'll be able to run and dance and climb trees. Would that be worth the hurt?" Sophia thought about this with the seriousness of someone much older. Then she looked at Elena. "Mama cries at night," she said quietly. "She thinks I can't hear her, but I do. She cries because I can't walk. If I could walk again, maybe Mama wouldn't be so sad anymore." Elena's vision blurred with tears. "Baby, I'm not sad because of you. I'm sad because I can't fix you." "But maybe this doctor can," Sophia said. "So I want to try. I want to be brave, like Daddy would want me to be." Dr. Hendricks looked at Elena. "She's remarkable. She's everything," Elena whispered. They scheduled the surgery for 2 weeks out. Time for more tests, for Sophia to build up strength, for Elena to prepare herself for the possibility of losing the last piece of hope she had left. When they returned to the penthouse, Dante was waiting. He'd changed clothes again, back in the casual jeans and Henley, but there was something different about him. His knuckles were bruised. There was a fresh cut above his left eyebrow, and his eyes held a darkness that made Elena instinctively step in front of Sophia's wheelchair. "How did it go?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "The doctor said he can help her," Elena said. "Surgery in 2 weeks." Something flickered across Dante's face, relief, maybe, or fear. "Good. That's good. Mr. Dante." Sophia wheeled forward before Elena could stop her. "You're hurt." Dante crouched down, bringing himself to her level. "Just a scratch, little one. Nothing to worry about." "Did you fall?" "Something like that." Sophia reached out and gently touched the cut above his eye. Her small fingers were impossibly gentle. "Mama says when we're hurt, we need to be taken care of. Did anyone take care of you?" Dante went very still. Elena saw his throat work as he swallowed hard. "No," he said quietly. "No one takes care of me, Sophia." "That's sad," Sophia said with devastating simplicity. "Everyone needs someone to take care of them. Even angels." She wheeled to Elena. "Mama, we should take care of Mr. Dante. He took care of us. That's fair." Elena looked at this man, this killer, this criminal, this person who'd shown her daughter more kindness in 24 hours than the world had shown in 2 years, and made a decision. "Sophia's right," she said. "Come on." She led Dante to the suite, to the massive bathroom with its first aid supplies tucked in a drawer. She pointed to the edge of the bathtub. "Sit." "Elena, this isn't necessary." "Sit," she repeated, and there was enough steel in her voice that he obeyed. Elena wet a washcloth and gently cleaned the cut above his eye. Dante flinched, not from pain, but from the intimacy of the gesture. "What happened?" she asked quietly. "I had a conversation with some people who needed to understand boundaries." "Did they understand?" "They won't forget." His voice was flat, emotionless. 3 men who thought they could prey on women and children in my territory learned that there are consequences. One of them is in the hospital. The other 2 won't be walking straight for a month. Elena's hand stilled. "You beat them." "Yes. Because of us." Dante looked up at her, and there was no apology in his eyes. "Because of the principle. You attacked the weak in my city, you answer to me. That's how this works. That's not justice. That's revenge. Justice is a fairy tale rich people tell themselves to sleep at night," Dante said harshly. "Revenge is honest. Revenge keeps people safe when the law won't." Elena applied antiseptic to the cut, making him hiss. "You could have killed them." "I wanted to," Dante admitted. "When I thought about that man kicking Sophia's medication into the gutter, I wanted to put a bullet in his brain. But I didn't. Because your daughter thinks I'm an angel, and angels don't execute people in alleys." He stood up, towering over her in the small space. They were close enough that Elena could smell the copper tang of blood mixed with his cologne. "I'm trying," he said, his voice rough. "I'm trying to be better than I am. But I'm not going to apologize for protecting you. I'm not going to pretend that the world responds to anything other than force." "I'm not asking you to apologize," Elena said. "I'm asking you not to die for us. Because if you die, we lose the only person who's treated us like we matter." Dante stared at her. "You matter," he said fiercely. "Both of you. You matter more than anything else in this goddamn city." The intensity in his voice stole Elena's breath. They stood frozen, the air between them crackling with something electric, something dangerous. The moment shattered when Sophia called from the other room. "Mama, Teresa says she's making spaghetti for dinner. Can Mr. Dante eat with us?" Dante stepped back, the walls slamming back into place. "I should go." "You should stay," Elena countered. "You promised Sophia you'd be here when she got back. She'll want to tell you about the doctor." "Elena, stay," she said again. "Have dinner with us. Be normal for one night. Can you do that?" Dante looked torn, like a wild animal being offered shelter but not trusting the door wouldn't slam shut. Finally, he nodded. Dinner was another domestic scene that felt surreal. Teresa had outdone herself. Homemade spaghetti with meatballs, fresh bread, a salad that actually had vegetables Elena recognized. They ate at the dining table, which could have seated 12 but felt intimate with just the 4 of them. Sophia talked nonstop about Dr. Hendricks and the big machine that took pictures of my bones, and how she was going to be super brave during surgery. Dante listened with complete attention, asking questions that showed he actually cared about the answers. Elena watched them, her daughter and this dangerous man, and felt something shift in her chest. It felt like hope, but sharper, more terrifying. After dinner, after Sophia had been bathed and put to bed with a story about angels that Dante told with surprising gentleness, Elena and Dante found themselves alone in the suite's living area. "Thank you," Elena said, "for everything. For the doctor, for the safety, for the pancakes, for being here." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do. Because you didn't have to do any of this. You could have walked away last night, but you didn't." Dante walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "Do you know what I saw when those men were attacking you?" "What?" "My mother. She was 43 when she died, cancer like yours. But it wasn't the cancer that killed her. It was the hopelessness. After Lucia, after my father, she just gave up. She stopped fighting because she'd been fighting so long she forgot what winning looked like." He turned to face Elena, and his eyes were haunted. "When I saw you on your knees gathering pills, fighting for your daughter despite everything, I saw what my mother could have been if someone had helped her. If someone had said, 'You don't have to do this alone.' So I'm not helping you out of charity, Elena. I'm helping you because you deserve to win. Because Sophia deserves a mother who doesn't have to choose between food and medicine." Elena crossed the room, closing the distance between them. "You're a good man, Dante Caruso." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are. A bad man wouldn't care. A bad man wouldn't cry when a little girl calls him an angel. A bad man wouldn't make pancakes and tell bedtime stories." "I've killed people," Dante said flatly. "I've hurt people. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. And I've stood by while my husband killed himself through grief," Elena shot back. "I've let my daughter go hungry because I was too proud to ask for help. I've cleaned toilets and served coffee to men who grabbed my ass because I needed the tips. We've all done things we're not proud of, Dante. The question is what we do next." Dante looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw the walls crumbling, saw the man beneath the armor. "What do we do next?" he asked quietly. Elena didn't have an answer. She only knew that standing here, in this penthouse, with this man who terrified her and comforted her in equal measure, she felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. She felt alive. Before she could respond, before she could analyze the feeling blooming in her chest, her phone, the one Dante had given her, buzzed. She looked at the screen. The text was from an unknown number. "You think Caruso can protect you? He can't watch you forever. Enjoy the castle, princess. Eventually, the walls come down." Elena's blood turned to ice. She handed the phone to Dante without a word. She watched his expression darken, watched his hands curl into fists around the device. When he looked up, the gentle man who'd made pancakes was gone. In his place was the predator who'd built an empire on fear. "How did they get this number?" Elena whispered. "They didn't," Dante said, his voice deadly calm. "I did. I gave it to someone who betrayed me." He made a call, speaking rapid Italian that Elena couldn't follow. When he hung up, he looked at her with eyes like winter. "Pack a bag," he said. "Not the suite. My bedroom. You and Sophia are moving into the master suite with me tonight." "Dante, someone in my organization leaked your number. That means someone in my house can't be trusted. Until I find out who, you stay where I can see you. Do you understand?" Elena nodded, fear clawing at her throat. "I won't let anything happen to you," Dante said, and it sounded like a vow. "I promise you, Elena. On my sister's grave, on everything I am, I will keep you safe. Even if it costs you everything." Dante's smile was sharp, dangerous. Especially then. As Elena went to wake Sophia and pack their things, as she prepared to move into the bedroom of a man she barely knew, she realized something terrifying. She trusted him. Against all logic, against all reason, she trusted Dante Caruso with her life and her daughter's life. And that trust felt like jumping off a cliff, hoping that the fall would feel like flying. The master suite was a fortress within a fortress. Biometric locks, reinforced walls, windows that could withstand a grenade blast. Dante moved through it like a general surveying his battlements, checking locks, confirming security protocols. Elena helped Sophia into the massive bed, a California king that could sleep 4 people comfortably. Her daughter was already half asleep, exhausted by the day's events. "Mama," Sophia murmured, "are we safe?" "Yes, Angel. Mr. Dante is making sure." "Good." Sophia's eyes closed. "I knew he would. Angels always keep their promises." Elena tucked her in, then turned to find Dante standing at the door, watching them with an expression she couldn't read. "I'll sleep on the couch," he said. "You and Sophia take the bed. That's your bed. And you're my responsibility. Take it." Elena walked to him, close enough to see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried. "Who takes care of you, Dante?" The question hung between them. "No one," he finally said. "That's not how my life works." "Maybe it should," Elena said softly. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the cut she'd cleaned earlier. Dante's eyes closed at the contact, and Elena saw him tremble, just once, just barely. "Let me take care of you," she whispered. "Just tonight. Let someone take care of you." When Dante's eyes opened, they were raw, vulnerable in a way that terrified and mesmerized her. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Because Sophia's right. Everyone needs someone to take care of them. Even angels who've forgotten they used to be human." Dante's hand came up to cover hers, holding it against his cheek. They stood there, frozen in a moment that felt like standing on the edge of the world. Then Dante pulled away, the walls rebuilding. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow I end this. Tomorrow I find out who betrayed us. And tomorrow they learn why you don't threaten what belongs to Dante Caruso." As he walked to the couch, as he lay down, still fully dressed, his gun within reach, Elena realized something that should have terrified her. She wasn't just under his protection anymore. She was his. And God help her, she didn't want it any other way. The betrayal came from where Dante least expected it. Marcus, his driver, his trusted lieutenant of 8 years, had sold Elena's phone number to the Sinaloa cartel for $50,000 and a promise of protection when the empire fell. Dante found out at dawn. By noon, Marcus was gone. Not dead. Dante had learned restraint from a little girl who believed in angels, but exiled, stripped of everything, sent back to Sicily with nothing but his shame. "You didn't kill him," Elena said when Dante returned to the penthouse. Sophia was at physical therapy with Teresa, leaving them alone. "No." Dante poured himself a drink he wouldn't consume. "I wanted to. My father would have. But then I thought about Sophia asking me if angels kill people, and I realized I didn't have an answer I could live with." Elena crossed the room and took the glass from his hand, setting it down. "You're changing." "I'm trying." "No." She placed her hand over his heart. "You're succeeding." Dante looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something he didn't deserve. He saw forgiveness. He saw acceptance. He saw love beginning to bloom, despite the darkness surrounding them. "The surgery is in 3 days," he said quietly. "Are you scared?" "Terrified, but hopeful." "That's new for me, having hope and fear at the same time." "That's called being alive." Elena smiled, and Dante felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen for 15 years. "I need to tell you something," Elena said. "Before the surgery, before everything changes. Tell me, I'm falling in love with you." The words came out in a rush, brave and terrified. "I know it's insane. I know it's been less than a week. I know you're dangerous, and this is complicated and I should run. But Sophia was right about you. You are an angel, my angel, and I'm done pretending I don't feel this." Dante stared at her, his mind reeling. No one had said those words to him in so long he'd forgotten what they sounded like. "I'm not good enough for you," he said. "I don't want good enough. I want you." Dante pulled her against him, burying his face in her hair, breathing her in like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. "If I do this," he whispered, "if I let myself love you, I won't be able to let you go. Ever. You'll be mine, Elena. Completely. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand the target it puts on your back?" "I've had a target on my back since the day I couldn't afford Sophia's medication," Elena said fiercely. "At least now I have someone standing between me and the guns." Dante kissed her then, deep and desperate, and full of promises he didn't know how to keep but would die trying to honor. The surgery took 9 hours. Dante paced the private waiting room like a caged animal, his phone vibrating with business he ignored. Teresa sat quietly, praying rosary beads. Elena simply stared at the wall, her hand clutched in Dante's whenever he passed close enough. When Dr. Hendricks finally emerged, still in his surgical scrubs, they all stood. "The surgery went well," he said, and Elena's knees buckled. Dante caught her, holding her upright. "We successfully decompressed the spinal cord. The stem cell injection was completed without complication. Now we wait." "When will we know if it worked?" Elena asked. 6 weeks, maybe 8. The neural pathways need time to heal, to reconnect. But her initial response was promising. She moved her toes when we tested the nerve response before closing. Elena sobbed, great heaving cries of relief and hope and exhaustion. Dante held her while she fell apart, this woman who'd been strong for so long she'd forgotten how to break. "Can we see her?" he asked. "Soon. She's in recovery. But Mr. Caruso?" Dr. Hendricks looked at him seriously. "That little girl fought like a warrior. She's remarkable." "I know," Dante said, his voice rough. "Believe me, I know. Underscore, 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 underscore. Underscore, 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 underscore. 6 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning that dawned bright and cold, it happened. Sophia was in physical therapy, her 3rd session of the day, when her right foot twitched. Not a spasm, not a reflex, a controlled movement. The therapist called them immediately. Dante and Elena raced to the therapy room to find Sophia crying, but they were tears of joy. "Mama, look!" She was standing, actually standing, supported by parallel bars, her legs trembling but holding weight. "I can feel my feet." Elena ran to her daughter, wrapping her in a hug, so tight Dante feared she'd break the child. But Sophia was laughing and crying and babbling about how her toes felt, tingly and weird and amazing. Dante stood back, watching this miracle he'd helped create, and felt something he hadn't felt since Lucia died. He felt peace. 3 months later, Sophia took her first independent steps. 6 months later, she ran. 1 year later, she danced at Elena and Dante's wedding. A small ceremony in the penthouse with Teresa as the witness and Sophia as the flower girl who kept stopping to do pirouettes because she could. Elena wore ivory. Dante wore black. Sophia wore purple and announced to everyone that she'd been right all along. Mr. Dante was definitely an angel, because angels made miracles happen. That night, after Sophia was asleep, after the guests had gone, Dante and Elena stood at the window overlooking the city. "Are you happy?" he asked. "Deliriously," Elena said. "Are you?" Dante thought about it, really thought about it. He thought about the empire he'd built, the blood on his hands, the darkness in his soul. Then he thought about the little girl who called him an angel and the woman who loved him despite knowing exactly what he was. "Yes," he said, and meant it. "For the first time in my life, I'm happy." Elena took his hand. "Sophia wants a little brother." Dante choked. "What?" "She asked me this morning. She said every angel needs a helper, and she wants to be a big sister." Dante looked at his wife. His wife, God, he still couldn't believe it, and saw the hope in her eyes. "A baby," he said slowly. "A child who would be half you and half me. Terrifying, right?" "Terrifying," he agreed, then smiled. "Let's do it." Elena laughed, pulling him close. "I love you, Dante Caruso. My angel. My monster. My home." "I love you more," he murmured against her lips. "You and Sophia saved me. You taught me that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a future worth fighting for. Then let's build it together." They kissed as the city lights blazed around them, 2 broken people who'd found wholeness in each other, creating a family from ashes and hope and a little girl's unshakable faith that angels were real. 2 years later, Sophia Caruso, adopted daughter of Dante and Elena, big sister to baby Marco, stood on stage at her dance recital. Her legs, once useless, now moved with grace and strength. In the front row, Dante held his son while Elena filmed everything, tears streaming down her face. After the performance, Sophia ran to them, her medal bouncing against her chest. "Did you see, Daddy? Did you see me dance?" Dante, former crime lord, current legitimate businessman slowly cleaning up his empire, always and forever Sophia's angel, picked her up and spun her around. "I saw everything, little one. You were magnificent." "That's because I had an angel watching over me," Sophia said seriously. You're still my angel, Daddy. You always will be." Dante looked at his daughter, at his wife, at the baby boy who had his mother's green eyes. He thought about the night he'd met them, desperate, broken, barely surviving. He thought about a little girl in a wheelchair who'd looked at a monster and seen heaven. And he realized that Sophia had been right all along. Angels did watch over them. Sometimes they just had scars and a past they were trying to outrun. Sometimes they looked like regular people. Sometimes they hid in plain sight. And sometimes, if you believed hard enough, they became real. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love the story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.